Welcome, my name is Chris Sikora and I'm going to step you through exercise 1 in Inventor 2023. In this release there are some significant improvements that I could see as far as the interface looks a little bit cleaner and such. What we're going to build today, our goal is what you see up on the screen, this part, and I do this for all my exercise 1 lessons for all the different systems I use. So we're going to take a look at how that's built, and there's basically what you can see here. We have a couple blocks that are built, as well as, let me turn off the ray tracing here. We're going to shell out the part, and we're going to put some chamfers on. That's the green area here. Those are angles. We're going to put some fillets on, and that will be about it. Then we'll take a look at the labs. So let's get started. First, go up to New, and you can select Standard Eye Part. Now, since I'm in the United States, I'm using the US template here. There's metric, though, if you wanted to use metric. I'm using ANSI, basically the inch standard, so I should say imperial. So go ahead and hit Create. Now, on the left here, we have the model browser. They just call it the model tree, I guess, now. But if you hit the little plus symbol next to origin, you'll see that there's YZ, which is the right plane, XZ, which is the top, and XY, which is the front. That's the plane we're going to sketch on. So if you go this method, you can select it, and right here we could click on Start a Sketch. Otherwise, you could go up here as well. You'll notice there's 2D and 3D sketches. We're not going to do any 3D sketches in this particular lesson. That's great for piping, tubing, and structural steel, but for what we're building, we don't need that. We're going to actually make 2D sketches and base our models off of that. So if I were to select this 2D sketch, it starts to sketch automatically on the front plane because I had that selected. So now here you can see under the sketch tools, we have an array of different lines, circles, arcs, rectangles, and such. We're gonna stay easy today and go with rectangle. Go ahead and select rectangle. Now move your pointer to the center point of the screen here, and you'll see you get the little green dot. Now you may actually have different colors than I do, and I'm going to go into that in just about 2 seconds. First, let's build this first rectangle. So you click when you get the green dot. If yours is a different color, that's okay. Just make sure you get the dot. And now drag it to the upper right corner, and then it gives you these dialog boxes for width and height. Notice the 0.57 on mine. That's actually the width. We want that to be 3 inches, so type in 3. Oops, accidentally hit 2. I'm going to backspace. Now hit the Tab key on your keyboard to move on to the height. And you'll see it automatically spread out the width. And now we could type in our height, which is only 5 inches. Hit Enter. And to center it, just hit Front on this block here. And now it centers it and fits it at the same time. Now, before we go any further, I promised you we're going to take a look at the options and how to set up your screen to make it look, if you want to make it look like mine or customize it for yourself. Go up to File and go to the Options menu. Now, unfortunately, because it's a little bit, I'm on a 4K screen and the scaling is a little bit different on mine here. I'm trying to record at 1080. It's a little bit large. But as you can see here, this is the heart of Inventor. If you want to change virtually anything, this is where you're going to find it. For right now, we're just going to focus on changing the screen colors and such. But if you go to colors here, you can see I have mine set to presentation, and the theme is light. By default, I believe they go with Millennium. You'll see there's high contrast. Actually, it might not be Millennium. I can't remember what the default was now. But I like to go with presentation simply because I am presenting and it's just easier to see on the screen for some of my students. Now, once you select that, there are some additional options down below. You could have it set to one color, gradient, background, and there you can see the preview, which is really nice, whatever one you want. You could even put a background image in there. But let's just go, I'm going to go with one color. This is purely up to you if you want to use that or not. Now, there are these enabled pre-highlights and enabled enhanced highlights. I'm going to go ahead and select those. Usually if you have a pretty good graphics card, that's what you go with. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to try and remember to show you, I just got the new Radeon Pro can see here, it's the W6400. It just came out, and I think I got it for 250 bucks. And it's a professional graphics card. It's great for CAD. You don't need it for Inventor, but I like having professional graphics cards. It only has 4 gigabytes of RAM. It's okay for gaming, not great for gaming. You wouldn't really want it for gaming. It's really for CAD, for professional use. But anyway, let's now go over to display. And under appearances here, you could use the document setting or use the application setting. So let's say we go with the use application setting and you go to the settings here. Some of the things that I like to do is to get a highlighted edge. So for example, model edges, you could have one color. I prefer them to be in black. You might not want that color. You could change it right here. You just click on it, but that's what I'm going with. And then you'll see the visual style. What would you like to see it in by default? And there's realistic shading, shaded. What I had up earlier was, I believe, realistic shading, but notice that there's all these other options here. Shaded with edges is probably the preferred method. You could turn on ground shadows, object shadows, ambient shadows. I do like having those on. Again, if you have a good graphics card, definitely well worth it. You could go with the projection of orthographic or perspective, ground reflections, ground plane. I don't really like the ground plane all that much, but it's not bad. And enable ray tracing. There's all these fun things you could set up in here and just have fun with it. Go ahead and hit OK, but try not to set too many today just because it might look completely different than mine by the time you're done if you change it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. That's all I wanted to show you there, but be aware we will take a look at that in more detail in the future. Now getting back to our model. Let's go ahead and we're going to now go to 3D model. See this preview here we have? Let's go to 3D model and go to extrude. Now I'm going to go ahead and go up here to this home button because by default it always brings me to that front view orientation, and I bet you there's a setting somewhere I could adjust that with, but I'm not going to go looking for it right now. But as you can see here, we're at 1 inch thick. You have the ability to grab these arrowheads and drag them for conceptualization purposes, but I'm going to bring it to 0.5. You could type in the explicit value as well, 0.5. You don't have to type in the zeros afterwards. If you know they're zeros, just type in 0.5. It's a lot easier. Okay, and then over here there's some additional options. Sometimes this is truncated up here, but if you click on it, you can see these options. Hit OK. Now we want to go ahead and sketch on this surface. Go ahead and select that face. Now notice when you select a face, you get some options. You could edit that extrude that we just created. So that would be like, let's say we wanted it 1.5 inches versus 0.5. You could click on that and edit that. You could edit the original sketch, the 3x5, and change those numbers. You could share the sketch. Basically, it's kind of like a copy. And then create sketch. We're going to go to create sketch. See the little green plus symbol? Select that. Now I'm going to center it again, and I'm going to proceed to go to rectangle and highlight this lower left corner. When I get the dot to turn green, I click. And when I say clicking, I'm clicking with my left mouse button 90% of the time. I will always be sure to say I'm right clicking when I use that mouse button. I'll usually say it twice just so you know. But when I say click, I'm generally referring to just clicking on the left mouse button. Okay, so I'm going to click there and I'm going to drag this over to the right. Now you can see it's locking in at 3 inches. I could actually stick with that. I could click on the edge, but then I lose the ability to add the dimension for the height. But let's go ahead and do that. When you click on the edge, it creates a relationship to the right side, so both will expand. If we change that 3-inch dimension on the lower part, both of these will expand. You can break that just by typing in a dimension for the 3-inch for the second entity. But let's go to the dimension tool here. And now click on these points of this rectangle because we want to dimension the height. Drag it to the right and click to center that dimension and type in 1.5. And remember, you don't have to type in 1.500. Okay, hit the green check and it should adjust. We could have dragged that even up further and found the midpoint if that's what we wanted, but we didn't want that. Let's go ahead and hit finish sketch, or you could go directly to 3D model and extrude again. Now we see the preview update. Sometimes you have to click on the face that you want to extrude. In this case, there wasn't anything else to extrude other than this. And again, we want it at 0.5, so that's a good distance. Hit OK. Let's go ahead and add a hole. Now there is the hole tool, which is really nice. It has countersinks, counterbores, all that fun stuff. But we just want a basic hole, and I'm still teaching you the basics on how to add and remove material. So with this hole, we'll actually do it the manual way, which is still pretty easy. Select this face, and again we'll go to Create Sketch. Now notice I'm not using the planes. You don't need to use the planes if you have flat surfaces to select. Go to Create, click on Front, go to Circle, and click right over here and drag out a circle and make it 0.75 for the diameter. Let's go to Dimension, select the center point to the top edge, click on the left, make that 1, and then click on the center point and click on the left edge, drag it up, click, and that will be 1 inch. And I'm just hitting enter after I enter the value. And now to scroll up on that, I'm using the wheel. And I could focus where I want to scroll to with the wheel. So if I wanted to scroll on that 1 inch dimension, I just keep scrolling towards it. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to front. And now we're ready to extrude that. So if we hit Finish Sketch, the nice thing about that is it kicks you into an isometric view, and then you could go ahead and go to Extrude. Now, with the extrude, not only does it add material, but it has the option to remove material. So take a look here. You could either flip it or go to cut, and it has a little bit of AI built into it. So watch when I go to cut. See, right now it's pulling forward. Go to cut, and it knows to reverse it. Now, I've seen it before where it gets a little confused if it's a complex part. So just be aware. Sometimes you might have to make sure you select flipped and cut. But let's go ahead and one other thing. There's something called design intent, and with parametric modelers like Inventor, SolidWorks, Creo, they all are kind of the same. You want to be sure that you make the model to where it's easy to be edited for the next person or even yourself later on. And there's certain, they're not rules, but they just are helpful hints. So for example here, we see that this is going 0.5 deep, which is the thickness of the model currently, but maybe there might be a change that comes down, and change always occurs in engineering and design. They're always making changes. They're thickening things, thinning them out. What if this changes to 0.75 for the thickness later on? Someone changes it to make it more durable. That 0.5 depth is no longer valid. It's not going to go through anymore. So if you want it to be through all, go over here and find the through all button. That will ensure, just by selecting it, even though it doesn't look any different right now, that will ensure that that will always be a through hole. So go ahead and hit OK. So that's a little lesson on design intent. I usually tell students, don't think too much about it early on, but I want to just start planting seeds. And that's going to make you a better modeler later on down the road. But don't, just for right now, model the way you know as quickly as you can, and then build up those skills. All right, let's now, we're going to use the Fillet Tool. Now there's the Fillet Tool up here. You could hit the F key, or you could literally click on an edge, and the Fillet Tool comes up automatically. So you could select this edge, and you could hold Control for multiple edges. Oops, I'm sorry, not, Shift, not Control. Okay, now go ahead and hit Create Fillet here, or you could hit the one up top. And you can see it's at 0.125 currently. Try and push that arrow in, and you could manually adjust this, again, for conceptual work. Let's go ahead and type in a value, though. Just type in 1. Hit Enter. 1 inch radius on both of those. Don't add any on the other sides. We have other plans for that. Now, we have the chamfer tool. Now, for a chamfer, basically, that's an angle. So it's a little different than a radius. A lot different, actually. Now, we could click on that, or we could use the quick launch tools, just like we saw earlier. So we could click on this edge here, and hold Shift, and click on this edge, and then go to chamfer. And 0.125 is what we want. Notice there's 3 options here: distance to distance, distance to angle, and 2 distances. So if we're on a 90-degree edge, and we have them equal, it's going to automatically come out to 45 degrees. So we're just going to go distance, and that's what we want. Distance of 0.125 of equal. Go ahead and hit OK. And so very quickly, we're putting together a very neat looking part here. Now, let's see how to rotate. Hold the Shift key down and your middle wheel. The middle wheel, remember, was for zoom. But if you push it down like it's a button and hold it, while you're holding Shift, watch what happens. You could rotate, or it says pivot right there. And that's dynamic rotation. You can use this as well, the rotation cube. You could click on different facets of it to get different orientations and views. You could click on the home button, it brings you to isometric. Let's go ahead and rotate that a little bit. Have a little fun with it. Take a minute, pause the video if you like, and just see how it rotates. Take a look at some of these tools, like there's pan, there's zoom all, zoom free orbit, things like that. Tinker around. Okay. Hopefully you had a little fun there. Let's go ahead and we're going to shell this out now. So to shell, you could pre-select holding Shift the faces that you want to remove, or just go to the shell command and just proceed to select the faces you don't want. And you see it opens up. It has the best preview in the business as far as I'm concerned. I love their preview here. And we're going to keep it at 0.1 thick. Go ahead and hit OK. Now let's go back home, up there, and let's go ahead and let's prepare this for some rendering. Let's have a little fun with some colors and such. Now, let's say we wanted to change the colors of the chamfer. Go ahead and find the chamfer. You could select the faces individually on the actual part, or you could select it from the model tree over here. Now look at this, you have materials. If you go to default here, they have a wonderful selection of materials. So for example, I'm going to go with gold in this case. Or actually there's gold metal, which is even better. There we go. And you can see it gives us a nice looking sheen. And if you're not getting that, I'm going to show you how to get it in just a second. Now, let's say I want the whole part to be changed. Go up to the top of where it says Part 2, and let's go over here and find something. And you could put anything you like on here. I'm going to go with, let's see. Usually like a chrome is really nice. Let's find chrome polished. Look at that, they have chrome polished blue. Oh, I'll try that one. Oh, it's a little interesting. And there's copper. Again, have some fun. I'm going to go with just chrome. All right. Now, so you've seen how you could actually apply different colors and such. Let's just do the whole by itself. Select the whole. And let's say we want that to be, I'm going to go with the polished black. Let's see what that does. It's just a darker chrome. Let's go with this blue here. Oh, Control Z will undo that if you get the wrong color. Make sure you select that face. So Control Z. Or there is undo that's up here, by the way. And there's redo, too. One more time. Let's go with copper. There we go. All right, so now let's even take it a little bit further. If you go to View, you'll see Visual Style. Hit the little arrow underneath there, and you'll see there's all these different visual styles. Like they have Sketch Illustrator, Watercolor. But let's go with Realistic. Okay. I'm not liking that copper. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to go with, try that. Oh, that's interesting. Looks like it's a texture. Very cool. All right. Now, when you're in visual style, again, we have it set to realistic. You could go to shadows, turn on all shadows, and reflections. Check that little box. And the ground plane I'm not a huge fan of, but under here, if you go with perspective, that gives you a vanishing point, makes it look more realistic. Just like a room gets smaller the further you are away from the back wall. That's perspective, so that's what it adds. Without it, it doesn't look very real. Okay, and then look at this. You have the default library. Let's go with cool light. That gives it some interesting shadow effect. Not too bad. Kind of like that. That's looking pretty cool. All right, just tinker around, find something that you like in there. And then finally, ray tracing. Now for ray tracing, you can see here you have low, draft, and high. And the longer you let it go, the better it's going to look until it gets all the way to the end. So you can make some really neat looking effects. Now you might notice that it goes flush here, especially with chromes and such. A little trick, and I think it's probably in there, but I haven't found it. Some systems have the ability to select like an edge, and you could put a little broken edge on there. I'm going to break that edge like 0.01, so 10,000ths of an inch. And now when we render it, it looks a little bit more realistic because now that edge is broken like it would be in real life, because that would be near impossible to get it that close. And you could break other edges too. That's a manual way, but I believe there might be a setting in there. If one of you knows where it is, go ahead and put it down below in the comments. All right, so now we've basically seen how to make a rendering. And those of you who are in my class, basically at this point, this part is done. And so what I'd like you to do is you could do a couple things. You could do if you hold the Alt button and hit print screen on your keyboard, you could grab a shot of that, drop it into Microsoft Word or LibreOffice. In fact, I'll do that. Alt print screen, or yeah, in that case, it only selects what we have up on the screen. And now I'm going to I'll go to Microsoft Word. I have an old version of it, version 10, but I'm going to go ahead and name this. This is exercise 1. Enter, Control V, and it drops it in. Now, to make a nice portfolio, just go to crop here. And you could go ahead and crop out what you don't want to see. So maybe you don't want to see all that stuff there. And now you could drag that out, and you have a beautiful cover page for a rendering. All right. Now, you can also just save this as a PDF, but let's see, let's see, export the file in PDF file format. Let's try this. I don't think it's going to ray trace it. Yeah, it's not. And I'm going to put this on my desktop. And where did it go? All right. Let's open it from here. Okay, so it's a little grainy, not great. That's PDF, but can't expect much more than that. All right, also, if you're curious about like a training guide, I do have a training guide, and here's how to find it. If you go to vertanu1.com, VERTANUX, it says it's not secure. I don't do any transactions on it, so I didn't bother to buy the security for it as far as for transactions. So that's why that pops up. But basically, you just go over here to instructional manuals and find the Autodesk Inventor, and it will pop up as a PDF, and you could download it, you could print it out. I don't care, it's free. All these are free for all the different systems. The part files that we're going to use, you'll see, are in there too as we move forward in the training guide. Exercise 5, exercise 6, 9, so on and so forth. And even the exams, they're all in green here. And then the videos, you'll find the video library. And you just go to Autodesk Inventor Basics, and here's the library. And as you can see, I'm making this video right now. I have 2022, I have 2021, and a whole selection of videos. It's a whole course. It's literally a college course. If you take all these, you could get college credit if you apply for it. Okay, so the training guide I already have up here, and here's what it looks like. As you can see, this is from 2021, so I need to update it. But really, there's not a whole lot I'm seeing that I'm going to have to update it. The interface still is pretty similar, some little changes, but you could still, this is still a very valid training guide for this software. So even if I don't get it done, use the 2021, you'll be fine. But as you can see here, some of the icons have changed a little bit, so those need to be updated. But the dimensions are there. It's great for notes. All right. Anyhow, those of you in my class, we now are going to do the labs. Now the labs, you'll see here, after finishing this, try lab 1. Also, by the way, I show you this last image here. That's as far as you have to go when it comes to this video. The fillets and things like that I showed you, that's just added value to sharpen your skills a little bit. But this is what I will typically grade on. Okay, but our next part, as you can see here, and is this. So it looks like the letter F. It's actually sideways. If you download it, you're actually able to right-click and rotate this, but I'm not going to download it right now. But you can see it's a 2 by 3.5 inches, and we have these steps here. Let's go ahead and try and build that. Go to New, Standard Eye Part. It should remember your settings, by the way, from what you set up earlier. Now watch this. If you go to Start 2D Sketch, you didn't see this earlier because we pre-selected a plane out of this Origins box. But here you could select the XY plane, which is the front plane. Most of the parts in my training guide are started, I do start them on the front plane just for ease of use. There are a couple that are on the top plane. Now you might ask, like, well, what's better? What I tell students typically, and I usually have a stapler on my desk, I don't have one today, but if you hold the stapler up on the side of it, that actually gives you the most bang for the buck. It's like looks like this. And so basically you could draw that whole profile and extrude it like we did, and you get a lot out of it. Versus if you were to rotate it to the very front of the stapler, it's just really a rectangle. You couldn't get much detail. So essentially the stapler, what I might think is the front view, is really technically like the right view. So you could select the right plane, sketch it on the right plane, and then it gives it to you in how you would maybe consider what front, top, and right is. Okay, but otherwise, sketching everything on the front plane, or what is the XY plane, is just fine, as long as you understand spatial capabilities in here. Okay, so let's move along. So I'm going to go to the line tool. I'm going to draw a line out. Let's go straight up. That's going to be 2 inches. Enter. And then this next one, according to the print, is 1 inch across. So I'm just going to go across here. Now, I'm using the line tool. If you remember, we used the rectangle tool before, so this is kind of new to you. So 1 inch across, and then it goes down 1 inch. Notice the 90 degrees. Make sure you get that 90 degrees. That's good. And then we could go across here. And then it's 0.75. Or you don't even have to do it this way. You could just eyeball it. Like, okay, it looks like it aligns to that. This one goes up here. This one comes down here. This goes across, down, and then connect. Now to add those others, we could add them exactly as we see them if we like. Like I could go to dimension, select the line. Notice I didn't have to select the endpoints of the line. I selected the whole line in this case. Click, that's going to be 3.5, 3.5. Stay away from the midpoint. You don't want to dimension to a midpoint necessarily in this lesson. Click here, this is going to be 0.85. Now click on this line to this line, and that's already 1. Now here's what's interesting. Look at this. There's adding this dimension will over-constrain the sketch. Let's think about that. This is cancel. That's because this is already constrained to this, which is constrained to that. So by adding this dimension, it's redundant. It's not needed. So that 1 inch dimension is not needed. You can do a couple things. You could leave it alone. You could click on this dimension, click on the line of it, and hit delete, or actually just surround it. Oops, hit escape. There, hit escape and just hit delete. Now we could add the dimension we see in the print versus the one we added in our way. All right, and so the next dimension from here to here Oops, I got a midpoint, but that's okay. That one will work. It's not really optimum, but let's go 2.5. We could hit escape. I'm a little lazy right now. All right, so now it's fully defined. One thing you might have not noticed was the colors have changed. Let's Control Z there. It's kind of hard to see, but this line is black. That means it's underdefined. The other lines are dark blue. And so when something is underdefined, it means that you could grab it and drag it. See, it's floating. Versus the ones that are constrained. See, this is constrained at 2 inches. It's not going to move if I try and grab it. And that's just clicking on it and then dragging it. But let's go back to the dimension tool and add that in from here to here. 2.5. We could even get rid of this dimension because that is not in the training guide, but it's okay. I don't really care how you decide to do it as long as it's accurate. But the company you work for might want you to dimension in a certain way, so it's not a bad precedent to use what they give you in a drawing. All right, so there we have it. Now we're going to go to Finish Sketch. Let's click on the Home button there so we can see the whole thing. Go to Extrude, and it is 0.5 thick. There, it's done. Now, if you want to have some fun with it, I really encourage you to click on the edges, go to the fillet, just go ahead and fillet some things. Enjoy it. Here you could use what I call Superman X-ray vision to get the backside. And okay. And now we could rotate with remember how to rotate? Shift on the keyboard and the middle wheel. You push it down like it's a button. Flip it around the back. Let's go to Shell, select this face. We can select that face too. Hit OK. Now look at that, we got a thin-walled part. So very quickly you can make parts much more complex than they appear in my drawings. So, and I would recommend that. Have fun, make it look good, because the more detailed they are, they're going to look good in your portfolio. Basic parts don't look all that great in a portfolio, so I really recommend adding these types of things. All right, next part. Let's take a look at the training guide here. So we're done with L1, and you would save that as L1. And those of you in my class who are going to put it into D2L, make sure you save it as capital L1 as a PDF and drop it in. Okay, the next one here we have is this part. And it's pretty much the same parameters as the first part we did. So 3 inches by 5, but it's centered, has a center cutout here. It's 1.5 inches thick overall. 1/2 inch plate at the bottom, and then we have these holes that are 1/2 inch in diameter and spaced 3/4 of an inch off each edge, and you can see little symmetric equal symbols there, so it's symmetric, equal on all sides, well, from left to right at least. So let's start new, standard eye part, create, go to start sketch, select the I'm going to go with, just to show you, I'm going to go with the top plane, which right here is actually, they list it as the XZ plane. Select that. And it really doesn't matter again, but I would do it if that's what I'm doing here, I would follow that. Now this is a center part. So I'm going to show you a little trick here that I haven't showed you yet. Use, instead of the 2-point rectangle, try using 2-point center. You start at the center, lock it in, click and drag it out. And now it's supposed to be 3, tab by 5, enter. Go to the top there. Oh, and I just noticed it's rotated. It's okay. All right, now let's add the circles. Add one right around here. Stay away, don't touch this center line or else it'll lock it in. So stay away from the center line. Just, this is going to be 0.5. Enter. And now let's go ahead and add some dimensions here. So from this point to this edge, 0.75. From this point to this edge, 0.75. Now, those of you who might not have had actual drawing class on how to make drawings or lay out a drawing, beware, you try and center them as much as possible like this and get the larger dimensions up above these smaller ones and pull out any of these other dimensions that appear like such. And you try not to overlap the lines too often. Okay, make it look nice that way. Just like goalposts, if you're trying for a soccer game to hit it, you try and shoot for the center. Okay, all right. Now, rather than draw all those, which you can, and add dimensions, I'm going to show you a quicker way. So go to the line tool, and exercise 2 really deals with this, so I'm giving you a preview. So with what you know, you could do this without what I'm about to show you, but I'm going to show you the cheat on how to mirror. So first, go to the line tool and draw a vertical line to the origin and a horizontal line off of it. Notice I didn't draw them all the way out. Oops, I only got one done. I hit escape before I finished the other line. So right about there. There we go. Now, after you hit escape on your keyboard, click and select both of those and go over here to center line. It converts them. Look at that. See dashed lines. They're center lines now. Those are what we use to mirror things across. So watch this. Select the circle that you want to mirror across. Go to mirror. And now click on mirror line and select the the vertical center line. And hit apply. And it should mirror it over. Now look at all these little symbols. Those are symbols letting you know they're symmetry symbols. Means that if this ever changes 0.75 here, this will change with it on the opposite side, just like a mirror. Okay, let's try this again. Go to select this circle and this circle. You could window around them too, like this. Oops, I deselected them. There we go. And then go to mirror line, and this time select the horizontal mirror. Hit apply. Done. Now watch this. Let's prove it out. Double click on this dimension here. Let's change it to 1.5. And they all adapt. Control Z as in zeta to undo. And we're ready to extrude. All right, I'm going to go to finish sketch. Notice how it's showing it at this perspective now versus because we sketched on the top plane like a tabletop. Go to extrude. Select this body here. It'll extrude up. We're going to have it go the full distance of 1.5. I'm going to show you. Oh, darn it. So I must have just typed in 0.5. Not a problem though. Click on this. Remember there's edit, extrude. Put the 1 in front of it. Hit enter. Easy as that. Okay, now there's a couple strategies. You can model this a dozen different ways, by the way. This is just one method I'm showing you. You could come in from the side and draw a little rectangle in the center and extrude it through. Or you could come in from the top. Let's do that. Select this face, start a sketch. We already have the center there. And so drag this out. And we know it's going to be 3, so hit tab. And then this is supposed to be 1.5 according to the drawing. Go to finish sketch. Go to extrude. Let's change it to 1 and then flip it. Now let's see if we flip it, if it knows to cut it. Did it. The AI is pretty good. Let's go ahead and hit OK. All right, that's the part. That's all you have to send to me, those of you in my class. Now, does it look good for a portfolio? Not so much. Let's dress it up. Go ahead and select this edge. Hold shift, select this edge. And again, use your discretion. Do what you'd like to do here. And my Superman X-ray vision is not working over here, so I'm going to have to rotate, which is fine because I was already holding shift. And hold shift again. And when this pops up, this is nice too. As long as it's showing that edge. Didn't do what I was hoping to do there. That's okay. Go to the Fillet Tool. Push those in. Can make it look pretty cool. Can make it look like some sort of socket plug. I'm not liking the 1 inch. Let's bring it out 0.75. And if you can't get it, just type in the explicit value. There we go. Hit OK. Now try chamfer. Select this edge here. And we'll go ahead and hold shift. This edge. Chamfer. 0.125 looks pretty good. You could even countersink these. Watch this. Hold shift and select those edges. And you could go and hit OK. All right, so let's shell it out. Rotate it around. Let's go to shell. Select this face here. And what the heck, let's select this face, this one, and this one too. Let's make it look a little exotic. Go to home. All right, you could also go and select the part up there. And let's go, I'm going to go ahead and just select, let's see what this expanded metal looks like. Whoa, wow, that's actually pretty cool looking. Yeah, I'll keep that. All right, so now we go to View, Visual Style, Realistic. We could go to Perspective. Wow, that's looking pretty neat. And Visual Style, oh, we already have Realistic. Okay, now another thing just to show you here, if this ever happens to you, this little button, try clicking on it once. It minimizes the icons, it makes it more optimum. Click on it a second time, they all disappear. Click on it again, they're really gone. And click on it again, it brings everything back. So that is a way of adjusting your interface however you like. A more seasoned user might not need to see all the text, so they might turn that off. And you can see over here you have minimized to tabs, panels, tiles, so on. Okay, also user interface. Click on this. You could turn off the view cube, that's right over here, the navigation bar. There's many toolbars, let's see what that is. No, I'm not seeing. And the model browser, if you want that turned off, for rendering maybe. But it really is handy to have it on, so if you ever turn it off, you can turn it back on that way. Okay, let's try the ray tracing, see what that looks like. Holy moly, that's pretty darn cool. Okay, so there you have it. There's a very beginner's class, first day, and I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and see you next week with exercise 2.